The first time I touched Mira's shoulders, I was sure I had just ruined my friendship. It was after closing time at Nate's bookstore, when the street outside went quiet and the rain started tapping the windows like it was trying to get in. The shop smelled like old paper and dust, and that burnt coffee Nate swore was classic. I was behind the counter with a half-finished spreadsheet open on my laptop, pretending I was here for the peace, and not because my life felt like a mess I could not organize. Nate was in Chicago for a week, working some book fair, and he trusted me to keep the place running. We grew up together. Same high school. Same late-night pizza runs. Same dumb plans we swore we would do someday. Now he ran his family's bookstore in this small town just outside Boston, and I was the guy filling in while he was gone. I was also the guy who did not know what to do with his own life yet. When the bell above the door jingled, I looked up, expecting a customer who forgot the time. Instead, Mira stood in the doorway like she belonged to the quiet. I had met her once before, years ago at one of Nate's birthdays, when I was still a kid who thought older people had it all figured out. Back then, she seemed distant, like she was always listening to something no one else could hear. Now she looked older, sure, but not in a bad way. She looked like someone who had lived through things and learned how to stand straight anyway. Her dark hair was tied up in a messy bun, and she wore a pale gray sweater that hung loose on her frame. There was a soft scent around her, jasmine, clean and warm, and it made the whole bookstore feel smaller. "Eli," she said, like she was testing the name. "You're watching the shop." "Yeah," I answered, standing too fast. The floorboards groaned like they were judging me. "Nate asked me to. He's out of town." She nodded, eyes sweeping over the shelves, the old ladders, the crooked sign that still said, "Quiet. Please," even though half the town treated this place like a hangout. "This place still feels the same," she said, "like my childhood never left." Quote, I tried to smile like a normal person. "It smells the same, too." Her lips lifted a little, not quite a full smile, but enough to make my chest feel tight for no reason. She walked deeper into the shop, fingers gliding over spines like she knew them personally. She stopped by the classics, pulled out a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice, and held it like it mattered. "Mom used to keep this behind the counter," she said. She said people asked for it when they wanted to feel hopeful. I leaned on the counter, watching her, trying not to act like I was watching her. "You read it?" Quote, "I did," she said. "I liked the parts where people said what they meant, even when they were scared." That landed harder than it should have. I cleared my throat. "So, you're in town for a visit?" "For a few days," she said, still looking at the book. "I've been helping Nate with some things. Paperwork. Family stuff." I wanted to ask what family stuff meant, but her tone said it was not a question for a guy like me. I was Nate's best friend. I was the temporary bookstore guy. I was not someone who got invited into Mira's real life. Then she turned, and her eyes met mine like she did not care about any of that. "My shoulder's been killing me," she said, as if she was commenting on the weather. "From driving and carrying boxes." "Oh," I managed. "Yeah, that sounds rough." She tilted her head, studying me. "Nate told me there's an old massage room upstairs, from when our mom tried to turn this place into a little wellness shop." "There is," I said. "It's kind of dusty." "The chair still works sometimes." Mira stepped closer to the counter, lowering her voice even though we were alone. "Do you think you could help me? Just for a few minutes. I cannot get this knot to let go." My brain should have said no. My brain should have reminded me that this was my best friend's sister. My brain should have reminded me that I was 24, and she was older and calmer and clearly used to not being told no. But the way she asked was not flirty, not dramatic. It was simple, like she trusted me, and somehow that made it worse. "Yeah," I heard myself say. "Okay, I can try." Quote, we went around the counter and up the narrow stairs that always made me feel like I was sneaking into a place I did not belong. The upstairs smelled like old wood and forgotten perfume. The massage room was small, tucked in the back, with a faded green chair and a single lamp that made everything look softer than it was. A tiny window rattled with the rain. Mira stood in the middle of the room for a second, arms folded like she was debating whether this was a mistake. "I can leave if this is weird," I blurted, because my mouth always moved faster than my sense. She looked at me, And this time she really smiled, just a little. "It's already weird," she said, "but my shoulder still hurts." She sat down slowly in the chair, like she was careful with herself, and pulled her sweater off her right shoulder enough to expose a black tank strap and the curve of her upper back. Nothing about it was inappropriate, but my face still went hot like I was 15 again. "Light pressure," she said quietly. "Just here." Quote, I stepped behind her, hands hovering, then finally placed my fingers on her shoulders. The muscle under my touch was tight, like a rope pulled too hard. I started slow, pressing in small circles the way I had seen in videos, trying to act like I had done this 1,000 times and not like my heart was kicking my ribs. Mira let out a breath that sounded like she had been holding it all day. "That spot," she murmured. I focused on the work, on the simple thing I understood. Tension, pressure, release. My hands steadied. The room stayed quiet, except for the rain and the soft hum of the old chair's motor. After a minute, Mira's voice came again, low and surprised. "You're actually good at this." I almost laughed. "I'm not. I'm just trying not to mess up." "You're not messing up," she said, and there was something in her tone that made my stomach flip. "You're doing what he never did." My finger slowed. "Who?" Mira turned her head just enough that I could see her eyes in the lamplight, calm but sharp, like she had decided to stop pretending. "My ex," she said. Then she looked up at me, and the words came out soft and honest, like they had been sitting on her tongue for a long time. "You're better than my ex." Her words hit me like cold water. "You're better than my ex." For a second, my hands forgot what they were doing. I stood there behind her, fingers resting on her shoulders, and I could feel my pulse in my fingertips like it was trying to give me away. I had no clue how to answer that. Part of me wanted to pretend I did not hear it. Part of me wanted to ask 100 questions I had no right to ask. Mira looked up at me again, then faced forward, like she had said something normal. Like she had not just pulled me into a new kind of danger. "I did not mean to make it awkward," she said, her voice calm. It just slipped out. "It's fine," I said too fast. "I mean, I'm sorry. About your ex. Not about the compliment. I mean, thanks, I guess." She gave a small laugh, and it was soft, not teasing, more like she was relieved I did not run out of the room. "Just keep going," she said. "That spot is still tight." Quote. I swallowed, forced my hands to move again, and tried to focus on the simple thing in front of me. Her shoulders were warm under my palms. The muscles slowly started to loosen. Every time she breathed out, it felt like the room got quieter. But my head was loud. "Nate's sister. Nate's sister. Nate's sister." I kept telling myself that like it was supposed to protect me, like repeating it would push my feelings back into a box. It did not work. Because Mira did not feel like a label sitting in that chair. She felt like a person. A woman who carried something heavy and was finally letting it drop, even just for a minute. "Where does it hurt most?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Right between my neck and shoulder," she said, "like a rock that never moves." I pressed gently, and she made a quiet sound that was half relief and half something else. I pretended I did not notice the way it made my chest tighten. "You do this kind of thing for work?" she asked. "No," I said. "I'm a coder, mostly. Freelance stuff." "Still?" she asked. "Nate said you were doing that back in college." Quote, "Yeah," I said. "I fix bugs, build small things. Nothing glamorous." Mira's head tilted slightly. "You do not talk about it like you like it." I shrugged, even though she could not see me. "It pays the bills." "That is not the same as liking it," she said. I did not answer right away. Because she was right, and I hated that she could tell so quickly. "What do you like?" she asked. I hesitated. My hands kept moving because stopping felt too intimate. "I used to write," I admitted. "Short stories, dumb stuff. I keep saying I'll get back to it." Mira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You should." I laughed under my breath. "You do not even know if I'm good." "I know the way you talk," she said. "You notice things. People who notice things can write." That made my throat tight in a way I was not ready for. No one had said anything like that to me in a long time. Most people only asked if I could fix their Wi-Fi or their laptop. "You paint, right?" I asked, because I needed to move the attention away from me. Mira's shoulders stiffened under my hands, just a little. It was small, but I felt it. "I used to," she said. The way she said "used to" sounded like a door closing. I slowed my hands. "Sorry. I should not pry." "You're not prying," she said. "It's just complicated." The rain tapped harder against the window. The old chair hummed. The lamp made her hair shine where it escaped the bun. I wanted to ask what happened. I wanted to ask why her voice sounded like it had been trained not to shake. But I could not. Not yet. So I did what I always do when I do not know how to help. I stayed quiet and let my hands do the talking. After a few minutes, Mira let out a long breath. "Okay," she said, "it's easing up." I pulled my hands away like I had touched a hot stove, then immediately felt stupid for doing it so fast. "Better?" I asked. She rolled her shoulders slowly. "Yeah, a lot better." She stood, tugged her sweater back into place, and turned toward me. Up close, her eyes looked tired in a way that did not match her calm voice, like she had learned how to hide the hard parts. "Thank you," she said. "You're welcome," I said. "Anytime." Quote. The word "anytime" slipped out too easily, like I wanted it to be true. Mira's gaze held mine for a beat longer than normal, and I felt something sharp inside me, not fear exactly, more like realization that I wanted her to come back. Then she looked away first, clearing her throat. "We should go downstairs," she said. "I do not want Nate thinking you kidnapped me into some weird room." "Yeah," I said, forcing a laugh. He'd probably call the police and then apologize after. We walked down the stairs, and the bookstore felt different now. The same old shelves, the same smell, but the air between us had changed. Like we had stepped into a secret space and brought some of it back with us. At the bottom, Mira paused near the counter. "You're closing soon, right?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. I was about to lock up. She nodded slowly, like she was deciding something. "I can help you." "You don't have to," I said. "I know," she replied. "I want to." So we stayed. We moved around the shop together, straightening stacks, putting books back where they belonged. It was simple work, but it felt like something else, like we were pretending this was normal so we did not have to talk about what happened upstairs. Every so often, our hands brushed when we reached for the same book. Each time, my whole body reacted like I was the one with the sore shoulder. When the last customer left, the bell jingled and the quiet came back. I flipped the sign to closed and locked the door. Mira stood near the front window, watching the rain streak the glass. "I should go," she said, but she did not move. "Yeah," I said, but I did not move either. She turned and looked at me, her expression soft but serious. "Eli, Nate doesn't know about my divorce details. He thinks it was just two people who grew apart." I frowned. "It wasn't." Mira's jaw tightened. "No." I took a step closer before I could stop myself. "What happened?" Her eyes searched mine, like she was checking if I could handle the truth. Then she said, very quietly, "He made me feel small, like I was lucky he even picked me." My stomach turned. I did not know the guy, but suddenly I hated him. Mira looked down at her hands, then back up. "That's why what you did upstairs mattered," she said. "You did not take. You just helped." My mouth went dry. "Mira, I did not finish, because her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her face changed. Not scared exactly, more like guarded. "It's Nate," she said. My heart thumped hard. "Is he back?" "He's still in Chicago," she said, staring at the message. "But he just texted me." She looked up at me, and the tension in her eyes made my skin go cold. "He says he's coming home early." Nate coming home early felt like someone had turned the lights on in a room we were not supposed to be in. Mira stared at her phone, like it might change the words if she looked hard enough. I stood there behind the counter, hands still, listening to the rain and the old radiator hum. and I swear I could hear my own heartbeat bouncing off the shelves. "How early?" I asked. Mira swallowed. "Tomorrow." My stomach dropped. Tomorrow was not enough time for anything. Not enough time to pretend this never happened. Not enough time to figure out what we were doing. Not enough time to stop wanting her the way I already did. Mira slid her phone into her coat pocket and forced a calm breath. "He said the fair ended early. He wants to open the shop himself again." "Okay," I said, like I knew how to handle this. Like I was not one bad decision away from losing my best friend. Mira's eyes met mine. There was fear in them, but there was something else too. A stubborn kind of bravery. The same quiet strength she carried when she walked into the bookstore like she owned the air. "We should keep this simple," she said. I nodded, even though simple felt impossible. "Yeah, simple." She picked up her scarf from the chair and wrapped it around her neck, then moved toward the door. She stopped with her hand on the knob. "Eli," she said softly. "Yeah?" She looked at me like she was trying to memorize my face. Tonight mattered to me. My throat tightened. It mattered to me too. She held my gaze for a beat longer, then opened the door. The bell jingled, and cold air rushed in with the rain. Before she stepped out, she turned back. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said. It was not a question. It was a promise. When the door shut, the shop felt empty in a way it never had. I locked up, turned off the lights, and walked home through wet streets that smelled like damp leaves and coffee from the cafe down the block. In my apartment, I tried to work, tried to focus on code, but my mind kept going back to her shoulders under my hands, her voice saying I mattered, the way she looked at me like I was something steady in a world that had not been kind to her. And now Nate was coming home. I barely slept. The next morning, I opened the bookstore early. I told myself it was because I wanted to get everything perfect for Nate's return. The truth was, I needed something to do with my hands before my thoughts ate me alive. I straightened shelves, wiped the counter, organized a stack of receipts like they were a problem I could solve. Every time the bell rang, my chest jumped. Every time it was just a customer, I felt relief and guilt at the same time. Mira came in just after noon. She looked different today. Same gray sweater, same messy bun, but her face was set like she had made a decision. She walked straight to the counter and placed a paper cup of coffee in front of me. "Drink," she said. "You look like you've been awake for 3 days." "I might have been," I said. She gave a small smile, then glanced around the shop. It was quiet, just an older man in the back reading a travel book. "Can we talk?" she asked. I nodded and followed her toward the poetry aisle, the narrow row where the shelves closed in, and the ceiling light flickered like it was tired. Mira leaned against the shelf and crossed her arms like she needed to hold herself together. "I need you to hear me," she said. "I'm listening," I told her. She took a breath. "Nate is your best friend. He's my brother. I am not trying to ruin that. I won't." My chest tightened. "Mira, I'm not trying to ruin anything either." "I know," she said. "That's why this is hard." I waited. The quiet in that aisle felt heavy. She looked at the floor, then back at me. "When you touched my shoulders yesterday, I felt safe. It sounds dramatic, but it's true. My ex used to hold me like he owned me. Even when he was being nice, it came with a price. With you, it didn't." My stomach turned again, anger and sadness mixing in my chest. "I'm sorry," I said. She shook her head. "Don't be sorry. Just be honest." I swallowed. Honest about what? Mira stepped closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that my whole body noticed. "Do you want this?" she asked. "Whatever this is." The air felt too thin. The bookstore sounds faded, like the world was waiting. "Yes," I said. "I do." Her eyes softened, and for a second she looked relieved, like she had been carrying that question alone. Then the relief faded into reality. "But we can't do it like this," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked. She exhaled slowly. "Secrets make people cruel. Secrets make people lie. I don't want to turn you into someone you're not." Quote. I wanted to tell her I'd already been lying, already been splitting myself into pieces every time Nate called, every time I saw his name on my screen. Mira continued, voice steady. "Nate comes back tonight. We act normal. We do not do anything stupid. We do not give him a reason to suspect anything." I nodded. "Okay. And after that, she said, her voice dropping, we decide what we are doing. My heart thumped. Together? She held my gaze. Together. We went back to the counter like nothing happened. Mira helped me ring up customers. She laughed at a little kid asking where the dinosaur books were. She looked like the kind older sister Nate always described. Calm, responsible, unbreakable. But every time she passed me a book, every time her fingers brushed mine, it felt like a question that still needed an answer. Around 5, Nate called me. I stared at the screen like it might bite. Mira saw my face and went still. I answered, "Hey." "Eli," Nate said, loud and cheerful, like always. "You still alive in there?" "Yeah," I said. "Shop's fine." "Good," he said. "I'm about an hour out. Traffic's not bad. I'm starving." "Want me to grab pizza?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "Dude, yes," he said. "Also, guess who I ran into at the airport?" My pulse jumped. "Who?" "Mira," he said, laughing. "I didn't even know she was going to Chicago. She said it was a last-minute thing. We grabbed coffee and caught up. She seems better, like lighter." My throat went dry, and my eyes snapped to Mira. She was watching me, face calm, but her hands were tight around a paperback like she might crush it. "That's good," I managed. "Yeah," Nate said. "Anyway, I'll see you soon. Keep the lights on. I want to walk in like a hero." I forced a laugh. "Sure, drive safe." When I hung up, I stood there for a second, frozen. Mira stepped closer. "He saw me." I nodded. "At the airport." Her face went pale for a moment, then she swallowed and steadied herself. "Okay." "That's not all," I said. "He said you seemed lighter." Mira let out a small breath that sounded like pain and relief at the same time. "He's happy for me," she whispered. "Or he thinks he is," I said. Mira looked away, blinking fast. "We can do this," she said, like she was convincing herself. The bell jingled then, and Nate walked in. He was carrying a duffel bag and wearing that same grin he'd worn since we were 16. He dropped the bag and spread his arms wide. "My bookstore," he announced. Still standing. I stepped out from behind the counter and hugged him, and guilt punched me so hard I nearly lost my breath. Mira stood a few feet away, hands folded, looking like the sister he knew. "Hey, big brother," she said. Nate turned and hugged her too, and for a second I watched them, trying to remember what normal felt like. Nate pulled back and looked between us, still smiling. "You too look like you've been working hard," he said. "I appreciate it." Then his eyes landed on me, and something in his expression shifted, not anger, not suspicion exactly, more like curiosity. He pointed at my hands. "Why are your fingers red?" I glanced down. My fingers were still a little raw from the cold, from wiping and organizing all morning. "Cleaning," I said quickly. "Dust gets everywhere." Nate nodded slowly. "Right, cleaning." He looked at Mira next. "And you, what were you doing here so much?" Quote. Mira's smile stayed in place, but I saw the tension in her jaw. "I was just checking on things," she said. "Making sure Eli wasn't letting you turn this place into a disaster." Nate laughed, but his eyes stayed on her half a beat too long. "Yeah," he said. "Good." He picked up a book off the nearest shelf, flipped it open, and then looked at me again. "Hey," he said, casual, like it meant nothing. "You want to grab a beer later? Just you and me?" My stomach tightened. "Sure," I said, trying not to show it. "Yeah." Nate smiled again, but it did not reach his eyes this time. "Cool," he said. "We'll talk." And as he turned toward the back room, Mira's gaze met mine over the counter. Her eyes said the same thing my chest already knew. Nate was not asking for a beer. Nate was asking for the truth. Nate didn't wait long. He locked up the bookstore like it was any normal night, flipped the sign to closed, and told Mira he'd be back in an hour. She nodded like she believed him, like she didn't hear the sharp edge under his calm. I followed him down the street to a small bar near the river, the kind with sticky tables and old Red Sox posters on the walls. The air smelled like fried food and spilled beer. Nate picked a booth in the back where the lights were dim and nobody paid attention. He didn't order right away. He just stared at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't want to solve. "You've been weird," he said. "I've been tired. I tried. Eli, he said, and my name sounded heavier in his mouth than it ever had. I know you. I know when you're hiding something. My throat went dry. I kept my hands under the table, because I knew if he saw them shaking, it would be over. Nate leaned back. So, I'm going to ask you once. Is this about Mira? The room felt like it tilted. I could have lied. I could have played dumb. I could have tried to protect him and protect myself and protect whatever this was. But the truth was already sitting between us. It had been sitting there since the first time her hand brushed mine in the bookstore. Yes, I said. Nate blinked like I'd slapped him. Yes, what? Yes, I repeated, voice quieter. It's about Mira. He stared at me for a long time. Then he let out a short laugh, but it didn't sound like humor. It sounded like shock. You're my best friend, he said, and she's my sister. I know, I whispered. How long? He asked, and his voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp. It hasn't been long, I said, and it wasn't planned. Nate shook his head, jaw tight. That does not answer the question. I swallowed. A few days. He pressed his tongue to the inside of his cheek like he was holding back words he didn't want to say. And what? He asked. You think you're going to date my sister behind my back like this is some stupid secret? That's not what I wanted, I said fast. I didn't want to hide it. I didn't want to lie to you. It just happened, and then you were gone, and I didn't know what to do. Nate's eyes flashed. So you did nothing. You just kept doing it. My chest hurt. I didn't want to hurt you. You did, he said. You already did. The waitress came by and asked if we wanted drinks. Nate waved her off without even looking. When she left, the silence came back worse. I took a breath. Nate, listen. I'm not using her. I'm not messing around. She's not some game. She's Mira. Nate's face changed at that, like hearing her name, and my voice made it real in a way he couldn't ignore. He leaned forward. You know what she's been through? Yes, I said. She told me what she wanted to tell me. Nate's eyes narrowed. And you think you're the guy who fixes that? No, I said, shaking my head. I'm not trying to fix her. I'm there. Nate stared at me again, and now his anger looked tired, like it had roots. You were supposed to be safe, he said quietly. That hit me the hardest. Because it was true. I had always been the safe one, the guy who kept things steady, the guy who didn't cross lines. I'm sorry, I said, and my voice cracked. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did. Nate's jaw worked. He looked away toward the window, where the river lights blurred in the glass. You know what I'm thinking, he said. I'm thinking she's lonely and you're young and you're close and she's going to get hurt again. My heart slammed against my ribs. I won't. Nate laughed again, bitter. You can't promise that. I swallowed hard. I can promise I won't do it on purpose. And I can promise I'll be honest from here on out. Nate turned back to me, eyes hard. So what now? I took a breath that felt like it scraped my lungs. Now we tell her we're not doing this in secret anymore. You deserve better than that. She deserves better than that, too. Nate stared at me like he didn't expect me to say that. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down. His face tightened. It's her, he said. My stomach dropped. Mira? He stood up like he couldn't sit anymore. Yeah, she wants to know where we are. I stood too. Let's go back, quote. Nate looked at me for a second, then nodded once like he had no better option. We walked back fast, the cold air biting my cheeks. When we pushed open the bookstore door, the bell jingled like it always did. Innocent and cheerful, like nothing was wrong. Mira was behind the counter, arms folded, eyes moving between us. She didn't look scared. She looked ready. You told him, she said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Yeah. Nate stepped forward. Why? He asked, and his voice cracked on the word. Why him? Mira flinched, just a little. Then she took a breath. Because he saw me, she said. Because he didn't treat me like I was broken. Because he didn't ask for anything from me except honesty. Nate shook his head. He's my friend. I know, she said softly. That's part of why I fought it, but I'm tired of living my life around what other people can handle. The way she said it made my throat tighten. It wasn't just about Nate, it was about her ex. About being invisible. About being told what she should want. Nate looked at me. "Did you touch her?" he asked, blunt and raw. Mira's face went still. I swallowed. I gave her a massage. That's how it started. Nate's eyes widened like he hated the image. "Jesus!" Mira stepped out from behind the counter. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't make it dirty," I asked. He didn't force anything. Nate dragged a hand down his face like he was trying to wake up from a bad dream. "This is insane," he muttered. "It's not insane," Mira said. "It's just inconvenient for you." Nate snapped his head up. "Inconvenient. That's what you call it." Mira's voice softened. "Nate, I love you. You're my brother. You've always tried to protect me, but I'm not 15. I'm not your responsibility." Nate's shoulders sagged like the fight drained out of him all at once. He looked at me. "Are you in love with her?" he asked. My heart hammered. I wasn't ready for that word. It felt too big, too final, but I couldn't lie now. Not after everything. "I don't know if it's love yet," I admitted, "but I know I care about her. A lot. And I know I don't want to play with her life." Quote. Mira's eyes softened at that. She stepped closer to me, close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off her. Nate watched it happen, and his face twisted like it hurt. "You two think this can just work?" he said. Mira shook her head. "No, I think it will be hard. I think you'll be angry. I think people will talk if they find out. I think we'll mess up sometimes." She looked at me then, and it felt like she was asking me to stand with her in daylight, not just in quiet rooms. "But I also think I deserve to feel something good," she said. The shop was silent except for the radiator and the soft creak of the building settling. Nate stared at the floor, breathing hard. Then he looked up, eyes wet in a way I had never seen. "I don't want to lose either of you," he said. Mira's face softened. "You won't. Not if you don't make me choose." Nate swallowed, like he was forcing something down. Pride, maybe. Fear. He looked at me, and his voice went cold again, but quieter. "If you hurt her, I will never forgive you." I nodded fast. "I understand." Quote. Nate stared at me another second, then shook his head. "I'm going home," he said. He walked out, the bell jingling behind him, and the sound felt like a door closing on the version of tonight we wanted. Mira stood still for a moment, staring at the door like she wanted to run after him. "You okay?" I asked. She let out a shaky breath. "No, but I will be." I stepped closer, careful, and I held my hand out like I was asking permission. She took it. Her fingers were warm, steady, and for a second the whole world felt quiet. "I didn't mean to blow up your life," I said. She gave a small, sad smile. "It was already cracked. You just showed me where." We locked up the bookstore together. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the streets were shiny under the streetlights. Mira led me toward the river like she needed air. We sat on a bench, the same kind we'd sat on before, the water moving slow and dark beside us. "I hate that he's hurting," she whispered. "I hate it too," I said. "But I'd rather he hate me for the truth than love me while I lie to him." Quote. Mira looked at me, and her eyes were tired but clear. "My ex used to tell me I was too much," she said. "Too emotional, too needy, too hard to please." My chest tightened. "You're not too much." She smiled faintly. "You keep saying things like that." "I mean it," I said. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and I held my breath because it felt like a fragile thing, like if I moved wrong it would break. "I said something to you during that massage," she murmured. I remembered, like it was burned into me. "You said I was better than your ex," I whispered. Mira nodded. "I meant it, and it scared me, because I realized I was comparing you to a man who hurt me, and I didn't want to turn you into a test you didn't ask for." I turned my head slightly. "I'm not a test." Mira sat up and looked at me, eyes shining. "Then what are you?" she asked. My throat went tight. "I'm Eli, and I want a chance, a real one. In daylight, even if it's messy." Mira's breath caught. She studied my face like she was taking a picture in her mind. Then she nodded once, slow. Okay, she said. A chance. I didn't kiss her like some movie. I didn't grab her like I was claiming her. I just leaned in and pressed my forehead to hers, and we breathed in the same space, quiet and honest. Behind us, the town kept moving. Cars passed. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the dark, Nate was probably sitting with anger and betrayal twisting in his chest. But right there, by the river, I felt something steady under all the fear. Mira's hand squeezed mine. And I knew whatever came next, we weren't going to hide anymore.